Welcome in. Today is a day where I don't have. Let's see. Why am I not hearing the microphone? There we go. 120 straight days of Clippers Talk episodes for you guys. 100 and straight days of Clippers Talk episodes for you right here at Clippers Talk on the YouTube side. Appreciate y'all. Please subscribe to the new podcast feed. It is Clippers Talk OT. And basically anything that's not posted on the other Clippers Talk feed for iHeart, the stuff that I do that's extra here on YouTube, I put there, which is why I called it Overtime. The Clippers have made a trade. Something has occurred. Something better than nothing. And we're going to talk about it here. Hopefully, Lob Murray of The Athletic is going to check in just a little bit. I do know at noon Pacific time, we will have big shot Bob Flom here on the show. That's happening. I'm sending out the link right now to Lob Murray as we get this underway. Sending it out to Bob Flom for noon. All right. So the deal is this, as it broke about an hour ago. The Clippers have traded PJ Tucker, Mo Bamba, a future second-round pick, and cash to the Utah Jazz for Drew Eubanks, Patty Mills as well. Drew Eubanks is a backup big in this league. He is the best player in this deal. Mo Bamba, unfortunately, I can't even make the argument that he was better this season than Mason Plumlee was last year for the Clippers. It was rough. In fact, just last night, I said the fact that, maybe it was the game against San Antonio, the fact that the Clippers and Coach Lou isn't playing Mo Bamba against Victor Wembanyama and would rather go small says a lot about how he feels about Mo Bamba as your backup big. It was rough, difficult. And I appreciate his time as a Clipper, but they had to do something. Is this the move that most people wanted? It's not John Collins. It's not Jonas Valanciunas. And they only have, I believe, one more second-round pick now that they can give up. So it probably means there isn't a huge move coming, as expected. We thought things would be on the margins with this team when it came to trades. The question is, can he be better than Mo Bamba was, Drew Eubanks, for 10 to 15 minutes a night at most? That's it. John says Jeff Van Gundy and Ty Lue will find a way to make Drew more serviceable than Mo was. I believe that. I do. I don't see how he can't. This also does a little bit for the Clippers when it comes to the salary cap. According to, and this is Justin Russo at Fly-By-Night, KNITE, Drew Eubanks has $4.7 million for next season, and it's non-guaranteed until January 10th of 2026 to be fully guaranteed. So essentially, the Clippers picked up no long-term money in the deal because Patty Mills has an expiring $2 million contract this year. The Clippers are now $4 million under the luxury tax after this deal. So here's something else Justin Russo said. I didn't realize this, they still have $3 million of their non-taxpayer mid-level exception that they could potentially use in the buyout market should an option present itself over the coming days and weeks. Justin Russo alerted us to that. But they're $4 million under the luxury tax. They might be able to pick up somebody decent. Somebody gets waived. This is all about flexibility, as we've been talking about for months. This front office has built clearly a competitive team in the present, and they are 8 games over 500. They've had Kawhi for 10 games so far. That also has a chance to make some big moves in the future because of cap flexibility. It's the best of both worlds. I think the front office has done a marvelous job. I think this move only helps their overall philosophy of what they're trying to do. It is going to be interesting to see who gets waived, who could be on the buyout market, and how the Clippers navigate it now. Because they're $4 million under the luxury tax. They're under the first apron. They're under the luxury tax. Really, really like what they were able to do for two guys who weren't contributing. PJ Tucker away from the ball club. Mo Bamba struggling. Eubanks and his contract, just to be clear about it, as I told you, Patty Mills has $2 million that is expiring at the end of this season. Eubanks has $4.7 million that is non-guaranteed for next season. So all this can be off the books. All this helps them with cap flexibility. Big. I think the Clippers, they have done a great job with this new salary cap era and the new CBA era that has been incredibly challenging for many teams out there. And really, in a lot of ways, of course, it's this strict, this punitive, because of teams like the Clippers that were going out and Steve Ballmer was spending like $150 million in the luxury tax every year. And they're trying to stop teams, the high rollers that want to spend. All these owners can spend. It's ridiculous. They're all billionaires. Yes, Steve Ballmer is the richest of them, but they all could go out there and spend more. And instead, they're restricting the ones that actually want to reinvest in their product, like Steve Ballmer, which is frustrating. But I think considering that and the new CBA rules, which are extremely strict, the Clippers have done a good job, and the front office has done a very good job. And this all started with letting Paul George go and not giving him the 4-year extension. They put themselves in a great spot where they still have tons of cap flexibility. Yes, it's a future second-round pick that is going. I don't know. I didn't see any details on which year. I know that's out there. We're hoping to have Law Murray on here in a little bit for a little bit more clarity on this trade. Granted, on the margins type of deal for the Clippers, but a guy who was taking up roster room that never played a game this season, that wanted to go to a contender in PJ Tucker, is now out and in Utah. So they'll probably buy him out. Maybe he goes to a contender, whatever. I don't know. We saw him last season. It didn't look like he had a lot left. Drew Eubanks is still, I think, 28. He hasn't been playing big minutes. You got to understand that. Yes, he's 28 years of age. He's bounced around some from San Antonio to Portland to Phoenix, and then this season in Utah. He's getting 6 points, 5 boards per game in 15 minutes. What does that project out to in per 36 minutes? About 14, 11, and 2 blocks per game. So his productivity out there when he is on the court is pretty decent, with per 36 minutes numbers of 14, 11, and 2 blocks, 3 assists. Guys, they just need somebody that can give them 10 good minutes, that can positionally be in the right spot. And it wasn't even so much that with Mo Bamba. It was just low motor stuff. I don't get it. You remember the first game he played for the Clippers? He looked decent. He looked like he was excited to be out there playing hard. It was actually, ironically, against Utah. He had 9 and 8 in 15 minutes. He was flying around. There was a higher level of activity than I think most people expected. I was encouraged. I was hopeful. It didn't last. And that's been the story with Mo Bamba throughout his career, that he lacks a consistent motor. We'll see if Lob Murray is going to join here. We at least got Robert Flom coming up at noon. We'll do a long episode for you guys. It's not often, not every day here on Clippers Talk, that we have a trade that went down. Some might see it as insignificant. Some might see it as just, hey, we got PJ Tucker off the team finally. So I know a lot of you don't speak too kindly of him. I can understand why. Like, PJ Tucker could have contributed to this team by being a good vet on the bench, by lending knowledge, by playing the Udonis Haslem role. It's a defensive-oriented team. Unfortunately, it just doesn't look like Lob Murray will be able to join. He's just hopping on a plane. Maybe I'll see if Justin Russo wants to come on as I workshop this episode for you guys in real time. But hey, that's why we always go live here. Let's see if Justin Russo at Fly By Night would want to join. I'll shoot out a link to him. He's done good work. Is PJ the worst Clipper in history? No, I don't think I'd go that far. I don't know about that. Yeah, Kai Jones has never materialized. But in going back to what I was talking about with PJ Tucker, it's like, you remember what Coach Lou said about him last season when he was begging to get on the court after he got a chance and got 3 different stints, really. 2 stretches during the regular season, and then got to start a must-win Game 6 for the Clippers. It's not like they didn't give him opportunities to perform out there. He was bad. And now he's, I think, 39. He doesn't look like he can contribute at this level anymore. He wasn't even taking his patented corner threes. He was turning a lot of them down. He is a complete liability on the offensive end. And on the other end, he was mostly just fouling because he's a step slow with what used to be great defense. And believe me, PJ Tucker, if they had him in his prime, he'd be a very good player for this team. But he wanted to be on a team supposedly that was a contender. Well, the Clippers are 28 and 20. They're playing great basketball. They have only had Kawhi for 10 games. I think he fumbled the bag, because I bet you PJ would have gotten opportunities to play this season. I bet you Coach Lou would trust him over Mo Bamba, over Kai Jones. I mean, come on. But I get it. Some guys dealing with their basketball or sports mortality and realizing they can't do this forever, they have a hard time dealing with that and reconciling that. And They're competitive, and you almost have to have an irrational confidence at times, I'm sure, as a professional athlete to believe in yourself, even when nobody else does at times. And maybe that's all it was with PJ. But I don't understand why on this team he wouldn't want to be just a good vet like Udonis Haslam. Encourage guys, dispense wisdom, and try to make sure that this team is focused every night defensively. Like, he could have been seen as a good vet, cheering guys on, but he wants to play. And last season, as I alluded to earlier, Coach Lou made a comment at one time. He's 70 years old, is what he said about PJ Tucker. He could ride off into the sunset. He doesn't have to do this anymore. And he's making $11 million. It's an expiring contract. And he elected to just stay home, basically, or they sent him home because, well, I'm guessing he didn't have the right attitude of that stable vet that's just there to lend a helping hand to the young guys, to be able to give them a little bit of his knowledge and help them out, help out a guy like Kobe Brown. Didn't want to do it. He wants to play. Fine. Now he's in Utah. We'll see if they buy him out and somebody who is a contender actually picks up PJ Tucker. I'm not trying to pile on. I'm trying to give the storyline of who PJ Tucker was this season with the Clippers. That's what happened. And it's disappointing overall. I mean, he made those comments to the paper when he first got here, like, I didn't ask to be traded. So, right. They had to take on your contract to get James Harden. That was the deal, PJ. So there seemed to be this disconnect with what the Clippers knew his role to be and what he thought his role was going to be. Because the season before, granted, he was playing heavy minutes still with the Sixers. And I saw at times him play good defense against Jokic, against certain guys when the matchups were favorable his way. You know, in the 22-23 season, he started 75 games for the 76ers. And he was still shooting 39% from three, attempting a couple per game, playing 26 minutes. So maybe it was just the decline was too much too fast for him to come to grips with, because he had just been playing heavier minutes the year before. And I can understand to some degree why he would believe, I'm still good. I can still help. I was just starting 75 games. But they gave him multiple opportunities with the Clippers. What are we talking about here? I don't know. Things could have gone differently. I don't think he realized how good this Clippers team could be this season, despite having a roster spot that was pretty much unoccupied because he wasn't playing. So the Clippers make a move. They trade PJ Tucker, Mo Bamba, a future second-round pick, and cash to Utah for Drew Eubanks and Patty Mills. The best player in this trade is Drew Eubanks. As I mentioned, his per 36 minutes, he's getting like 14, 11, and 2 blocks. He's obviously not actually playing 36 minutes a night. He's been, the last couple of years, playing 15 minutes. For Utah this season, for Phoenix last season, he's had a handful of starts, 4 of them this year, 6 last season. But is he more serviceable as a backup than Mo Bamba? That is the bar. It used to be, can Mo Bamba be better than Mason Plumlee was last season? He did not clear that bar, unfortunately. And Plumlee has been better than him this year in Phoenix than Mo Bamba was with the Clippers. Wish him well. Just seems like there's zero consistency with him. And that's been the issue throughout his career. So Drew Eubanks comes in. He has played 37 games this year with the Utah Jazz. In 15 minutes per game, he's averaging 6 points, about 5 boards, shooting 60% from the field, and is getting about a block a game in 15 minutes. If the Clippers give him 10 to 15 a night, will he be better than Mo Bamba? I think so. I also thought Mo Bamba would be better than Mason Plumlee was, though, last season. That didn't materialize at all. So I can understand the skepticism. MKXLNT said Eubanks may be a nice, sneaky get. Brett, I think, is talking about PJ. Played him one round against Dallas. They played him in a must-win Game 6 against Dallas. He started that game last season. Don't tell me PJ Tucker didn't get opportunities. And yes, he opted in to the $11 million. If he wanted to be a free agent, if he wanted to go someplace else, he could have not opted in. You could say that's unrealistic. Why wouldn't you take the $11 million? Fine. But if you're going to opt into it, don't complain that you're not playing. You made the decision. You could have gone somewhere else. You can't have it both ways. You can't have your cake and eat it too, PJ. That's all I'm saying. That's what's frustrating about the situation. Good luck in Utah, wherever else you end up. Hey, maybe he finds the perfect landing spot for a 39-year-old that doesn't seem to have much left. Tyler said, and I've seen a lot of this, Eubanks is slightly below average at everything, but he plays physical and is mobile. See, what you want from the backup center position is just a guy who can, yes, if he's slightly below average at everything, but he's going up against other teams' backup centers and second unit guys, you can live with that. You can deal with that. Makua88 said, is Eubanks a poor man's Hartenstein without the passing? It might be too high a praise. Mark said, I love the small moves they do. Patty is a good backup point guard, and Banks knows how to body and is physical. Be physical. Be a presence out there. Let people know you're on the court. Be like Big Brother Jake Warner. 5 fouls, baby. Give those fouls. At the very least, that's what you can do. Now, hopefully, Coach Lou believes in him, is ready to use him, because he has a proclivity for wanting to play small. And I'm fine with it. A lot of the times, I think when he does it, it makes a lot of sense. Like last night, I think it was overblown with Ivica Zubac not playing the last 8 minutes and I think 45 seconds in the Clippers' victory in Charlotte. Like they won the minutes where they went small with Kawhi on the floor and no Ivica Zubac. I think they went +7 in those minutes. When Zubac came off the floor, they were only up by 3. They won the game by 8. So it seemed to work overall. It did. And I understood the logic of doing it against Wemby too, where it can at least bring him away from the basket on the other end. Let's see who we got here. Oh, shit. La Murray, the legend, in the chat with us right now. Moslin, you know what? I wasn't even plugged in the way I thought I was earlier. What's good? What airport you at?
I'm at Charlotte. I'm also trying to actually make it so that my headphones work. So bear with me.
You sound fine. Honestly,
Yeah,
you sound good.
I'm fine to you, but I don't sound fine to me.
Oh, I got you.
All right, I'm good now.
All right, give me the Cliff's notes on this deal. What's the Clippers' main objective here? How good is Drew Eubanks? Is Patty Mills? Can he still give him some minutes? What are the implications of this trade?
I'm not expecting Patty. That's the last name that I heard while I was fixing my audio. I'm not expecting Patty to be a Clipper, to be honest with you.
He's gonna get bought out.
I'm not. I'm not sure how that's going to go. I don't know if y'all remember. We still have a trade deadline Thursday, so there's a lot of moving parts. That'll reveal itself over the next week. So you know, it's not 100% certain that Patty's not going to be there. It's not 100% certain that the Clippers don't make another move. Um, do they need to make another move? No. They sorry. Again, I'm at the airport. I'm trying to keep an eye on my boarding group. Um, even though I don't really care about my boarding group, I'm going to get on the damn thing. I don't believe in overhead luggage, so I get on when I get on. I know it ain't a Southwest flight. You know what I'm saying? I know where I'm sitting at. So
I
it
like
is
the
what it
mindset.
is. Yeah, but yeah, it's like there's a lot that could happen. What's great about this trade for the Clippers is you go from an $11.5 million player that is not with your team and has you know, no role to a guy on a minimum contract that if you need to use that salary for whatever, past the deadline, again, if you need to, that's how it'll get done. So um, we need to. This isn't the Patty Mills that you might remember with the San Antonio Spurs that used to, collect the Clippers' soul every chance he got. Like Patty's not that. He's not that level of player anymore. Like he's a great guy to have around if that's what winds up happening. But I don't expect. I'm not planning for Patty Mills to be on the team. I look at Patty Mills right now the same way I looked at um, Shemi Ojale when the Clippers traded for him and Rodney Hood 3 years ago.
All right, Drew Eubanks. How much better is he as a backup big than Mo Bamba?
Well, he's certainly a player who's capable of being on the floor more than Mo. He's not. He doesn't have Mo's ceiling. I mean, the idea of Mo Bamba was a guy who could stretch the floor, like legitimately be comfortable taking threes on one end while being a 7 footer with a ability to be a vertical spacer and to block shots. To be a decent rim protector. And we saw Mo approach those things a few times, occasionally in his, 2.5 months playing with the Clippers. But unfortunately, Mo Bamba's floor was quite low, and um, you know, actions speak louder than words. So I know Teron Lue said that he had no problem putting Mo on the floor, but we also saw Mo not play when the Clippers needed a center. We saw Mo Bamba, even he got a chance to start a couple games last week with his Zubats dealing with his eye issue, and Mo still didn't make it to 20 minutes in those games. And so the writing was on the wall as far as Mo's like viability. I wasn't certain he'd be traded. The thing with Drew Eubanks is you're not getting any style points here. Drew is a tryhard. So, you know, what's interesting is Drew has made a few corner threes. So it's not like he's a complete and total non-shooter. And I wonder if the Clippers, do what they did with Mo Bamba sometimes, stick him in the corner and have him be an outlet and encourage him to shoot that shot more than he did for Utah. Like Will Hardy is not really big on having his center shoot threes. Like we've seen Walker Kessler campaign to shoot that corner three and like open games or has up with it, and he'll make it, and we'll be like, yeah, it's cool. We're not going to have him get used to that. So I'm very interested to see that part of Drew's game. Drew's not a post player. Like it's not that he's bad. It's just he's not a player that you're gonna pretend like you're playing through. And then you know defensively, he's 6'10", so he's on the shorter side for a center. Um, there you go. We are going through this line here. So if I lose service or my service gets janky, that's what happens.
Okay, quickly, Law. What about the cap implications of this and how that helps with flexibility?
Yeah, I think that's that's to me. I mean, I think getting a guy like Eubanks and seeing how he looks with the Clippers is a good thing. Just this is the move the Clippers had to make, because they wanted to get off of PJ Tucker and they wanted to, get some get the savings that was going to come with either trading PJ or trading Bones Highland. Now that they've made this move, they have all the flexibility you could ask for that will allow them to, see what they can do in the trade market, see if there's a way to upgrade the team there, if it fits what they want to do in the short and long term. Um, the buyout market, the Clippers will look at and see, after trades do get made and teams kind of, resettle and see what they have, like who winds up getting let go after the fact, right? Like obviously PJ Tucker's going to get bought out. Not that you're going to reunite with PJ Tucker. So that's something like the Clippers aren't done. Now we could say a week from now that they're done, but they're not. They're not done. So we're going to see what that does. But the Clippers had financial business that they had to attend to with this trade deadline. They absolutely did not want to buy out a player making $10 million, $11.5 million like PJ. The Utah Jazz did a solid for them once again, and so we'll see. We'll see what that means for now, between now and Thursday, and short really this entire month because the Clippers have a very busy, compact, road-heavy schedule as soon as the All-Star break ends. And whatever they do, they're going to want to take. It's not like you're waiting till March, like we're going to get answers sooner rather than later.
He is Law Murray of The Athletic. Follow him at Law Murray, DNU. He is the reason to subscribe there. He's the reason I'm there. Law, be good. We love you. Safe travels. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
Law's the best, guys. Love him. He didn't have to do that. The guy's literally getting on the plane. Appreciate the insight there from Law Murray. And I knew I was forgetting something earlier. I could have had the entire way through here. Now I'll actually plug in the sound card and talk to you guys. So, Law Murray, I thought he said something interesting there about Drew Eubanks. He's a try-hard. Some in here are saying Eubanks is Hartenstein 2.0. I don't know about that one, Chief. That's aspirational. Clay's asking, are both going to make their debut tomorrow? I would guess probably not. Again, Law said he doesn't expect Patty Mills to make the team. He has a $2 million expiring contract. They probably will buy him out. But let's just say for a second, Patty Mills did end up playing a couple games with the Clippers. I'm interested just to see where he's at in his career right now. He is 36. He's played 17 games so far this season. He's shooting 34% from the field, 29% from the outside, getting 4 points and an assist per game while getting 15 minutes in 17 games he has played in so far this season with the Utah Jazz. Yeah. Patty Mills is on the back end, the final nine. He's at the end of the road in his career. I don't think he's the guy that's going to be replacing or being the backup ball handler. We've talked about KPJ. How much can you rely on him in a playoff series? He's been kind of erratic at times. Okay, like every game, it's up and down, but there is still some people saying Patty the GOAT here. Patty Mills is not the answer for the backup point guard position. And yeah, as Gabriel said, is not a rotational guard anymore, man. So he'll likely be bought out. Again, Drew Eubanks, as I said, that's the best player in this move. And hopefully somebody that Coach Lou has some belief in, because he'll at least go out there and play hard. Drew Eubanks is averaging 6 points, 5 boards in 15 minutes a night in his 37 games with 4 starts for the Utah Jazz this season. That projects out to, in per 36 minutes, 14 and 11 and 2 blocks. So he is being productive somewhat out there. That's not nothing. He's still 28. He's at least a live body that will use it, that will play hard. In some ways, maybe he's the anti-Mo Bamba because he has a motor. Mo Bamba's effort at times was lacking. Like, I'd see him have a really bad stint in the first half and then play better in the second half in his minutes, and that kind of stuff was happening a lot. There just wasn't much consistency game to game, quarter to quarter with Mo Bamba. And that is what I think did him in for being out of the rotation more than anything else. Like, if you're going to be a backup center in this league, you have to consistently give great effort, have a high motor. That's it. Tyler said Mills was a fringe starter at his best. He was signed as an extension of the coaching staff by the Jazz. Bonesaw said Drew is a Jeff Van Gundy type of player. Hard-nosed. Blood in the garden. Kaylee said trying hard is great. It's our entire identity. That's true. As Gabriel said. Play hard, try hard, work hard, stay ready. Just give effort in your minutes. Because the Clippers are talented enough where, especially with Kawhi back now, if guys are just doing the Bill Belichick do your job stuff, and even if it amounts to some hard fouls, it's funny. JJ Redick recently got on the Lakers for not fouling enough. Sometimes that's indicative of just being more physical out there. If you look at teams who foul the least, and the Lakers, I think, are one of them, and some of you will say, well, that's because they don't get called for fouls. I think part of the reason is they just aren't playing hard enough. They aren't bringing that physicality. Physicality is one of the key buzzwords around this Clippers team with Coach Lue all the time. That's what he talks about. He talked about it last night. Felt like they didn't have enough of it. That game was too close for comfort against Charlotte. It was. But Drew Eubanks, if he's bringing physicality, if he is giving everything he's got out there, we'll take it. And I think he will. And if he plays with some passion, if he can ignite a run here and there, inspire others, that's all we want. So I'm excited about this for the Clippers. It's not the big move. It's not John Collins. We always thought that was, unlikely that they were going to do anything that wasn't on the edges, that they were going to make some big move. There's still time. We'll see. They still have another second-round pick. They still have Bones Highland. But the big salary filler contract is gone in PJ Tucker. Now, there is another guy who makes about $11 million on this Clippers team that has been out of the rotation some, that hasn't been playing great lately. That's Terrence Mann. That's their big trade chip. That's their big asset at this point. If they were going to go out and make a bigger swing, I would assume Terrence Mann would have to be involved. Others have brought up that maybe it's Amir Coffey because they won't be able to afford to pay him as he's greatly outperformed his contract. I think he's making $4 million this season. He's going to be a free agent at the end of this year, I believe. Maybe it's Amir Coffey. Richard said Mills has killed us on a few occasions in the past. Yes, Law brought that up. He was a bucket getter, probably too late in his career to help us. Eubanks has also played well against us at times. He can be helpful. Yeah, I feel like Eubanks with Phoenix at times gave the Clippers some issues. Before that, Portland, they obviously saw him a lot. I mean, okay, so his best run was this the second half or the first half of the 21-22 season? He played 22 games with Portland in the 21-22 season. and averaged 15 and 9, was getting 30 minutes a night. Not nothing. He at least has some pedigree playing in San Antonio. He didn't play with Kawhi because he was drafted the 2018-2019 season. And maybe there's another wrinkle to this. Kawhi and Mo Bamba were boys. They were friends. They are friends. I think Kawhi Leonard is a professional, and he's going to be understanding of why Mo Bamba was moved. They will still be friends. They'll still be contacting each other. I was hoping that, hey, Mo Bamba, Kawhi's going to get the best out of him because they're friends. He's going to play better. He's going to realize his potential finally. He's still just 26. As Law said, his ceiling's higher, but he's never gotten close to reaching it. Top 10 pick in the draft. Hip to Clip said, I think Eubanks will have as much of an impact as Tice did for us last year, which isn't much, but a net positive at least. I'm not even sure it was a net positive, but are you losing your minutes by less than what you would be losing them by with Mo Bamba is the question. Sometimes that's all it is with some of these second units and patchwork lineups. It's how can we have a slow bleed where it's not extreme hemorrhaging of points. That's sometimes all you're trying to do. Not lose the minutes so severely that you give away momentum and end up giving away a game. That's what it comes down to sometimes, guys. Like everybody thinks, oh, you got to win your minutes. You got to win your minutes. Sometimes it's just don't lose them as bad as the other guy. Tyler said when Patty played this year, it was as the lead point guard and most of his shots came off the dribble. I'm sure his catch and shoot threes are still 36 plus percent. I don't know about that one. I was just looking at the numbers. They weren't great. Chunk said trade Kawhi and build around a young Eubanks. Okay, Chunk's kidding. I hope. Yeah, we do have the soundboard here today. Somebody is going, no, Coffee the guy. Can't get rid of him. Clay said Coffee is our sixth man. I know, guys. I don't want to trade Coffee. I'm just saying what some people brought up, and there's some logic to it. Now, you can make the argument that, okay, this contract's only $4 million, so what are you going to get for him? But as part of a bigger deal, it would have to be. If they were going to bring in somebody of real value, Amir Coffee has value. I don't think anybody should be off limits with this team, honestly. You consider everything. I don't have any problem with the Sacramento Kings fielding offers for De'Aaron Fox. De'Aaron Fox and Rich Paul shouldn't either. That's not the issue up there. I think, you listen. You're always listening. You're always trying to improve your team. Doesn't mean I want Terrence Mann to be traded or Amir Coffee to be traded. Tyler said getting Mann back is just like trading for a guy. I just haven't seen enough of those Terrence Mann type of games lately. They were happening. It seemed like he had turned a corner right before he broke his middle finger. Then when he came back, he looked pretty good. Last couple of games, though, from Terrence Mann against San Antonio, against Charlotte, I didn't think were great Terrence Mann games. Nor against Phoenix in his 7 minutes, where he only played the second half. In a game they lost by 2. After this season, he's making $15 million. Now, that could be a downside to any team trying to trade for him at this point. I think it's still a tradable contract. I think other teams know body of work with Terrence Mann, and if he's in a funk right now, change of scenery, whatever. But that is their biggest trade asset at this point, the most likely guy to be moved, right? That's all I'm saying. Chunk said, honestly, Amir plus Mann plus first can get you something if they really wanted to go all in. I don't think they're trading their 2031 first-round pick. Like, tell me the guy that they're trading for with that as the trade package. Tell me the guy they're getting. I'm not doing that for Zach LaVine or Jimmy Butler or these guys. Like, who is the guy they're getting? Venkata said Bones, KPJ, Coffee in a second. For what? The other thing is people always like package like 3, 4, 5 guys together. The other team doesn't have a roster with only 10 guys. They'd have to start cutting. It's not that simple. The trade machine doesn't always tell you that. Teams just can't absorb 5 players in a trade. Their rosters are full. Tyler said, as a Jazz fan, I'd take that for Sexton. You'd take what? Bones, KPJ, Coffee in a second for Sexton? As Law pointed out, they have done business with the Utah Jazz lately. Robert said, Drew's birthday today. Wait, it's Eubanks' birthday today? No way. It is. So wait, did he just turn 28 or did he just turn 29? I think he's just turned 28. So there's a lot in his favor, guys. Plays hard, motor, still young, live body. What more do you want from a backup center in this league? I guess he's a little bit undersized. Maybe like a slightly bigger Daniel Tice that takes less threes. Absent said Coffee is shooting 41, 31, 100 since Kawhi came back. I didn't know his three-point shooting was that low. Can anybody confirm that? Tyler said the Amir Man first trade, reroute Man and Amir for seconds. Huh? Kaylee said Mo did play slightly better with Kawhi. I think you mentioned it. In one game, there was one stint with him that it did happen. I forget which game that was. There was one stint where he was on the court with Kawhi, and it looked like Mo was playing harder. Clay said, no, we not trading Coffee. Here come all the trade ideas. Okay. Novro said, Eubanks job, set pick, roll, dunk, try on defense for 15 minutes. Walmart, Daniel Tice. Can he be better than Tice? Walmart, Daniel Tice? Daniel Tice last season, I think, was a Walmart Daniel Tice of what he used to be with Boston. Who gets a timeout? Richard? RFC 72 said, Man, Bones, Coffee for DeRozan. I don't think so, man. DeRozan is 35, 36. Like, you're going to have another mid-range guy. I don't think that's the style or the way you'd want your offense to be played. Him and Kawhi would take up each other's space. Chris Lopez said, get rid of Man. Tom Raines said, I think Coffee is more valuable to the Clippers than Man. Mark said, I love me some Coffee. He plays hard. Venkata said, what can you do for Coffee, Bones, and KPJ trade? You tell me. I'm not into many of these hypothetical trades. Mike Dang said, Eubanks had some nice power dunks. Absent said, the starting 5 plus Batum should be untouchable. The Kenny GM said, DeRozan might want to leave Sac if Fox gets traded, but I think people sleep on Amir. I don't think stylistically DeRozan is a good fit next to Kawhi at all. Legend said, Adam, what do you think a trade for Yabusele from the Sixers? He is perfect fit for us. He's nice. He makes like $3 million or something. They can't afford to keep him, so they'll probably trade him, the Sixers, but he might be out of the Clippers price range. Unless, like, if they trade Man to get him and who else am I thinking of with the Sixers? If they traded for Kelly Oubre Jr. and Yabusele for Man and somebody else, maybe there's a way to make that work. Chris Lopez said Terrence Mann got that deal and lost all of his effort. I don't think it's an effort issue really at all with Terrence Mann. I think it's a confidence issue. Bolago said, can somebody explain Eubanks' strengths and weaknesses? I mean, we've been talking about them. Strengths, motor, try hard. Weaknesses, not the most talented guy. He's not going to shoot jumpers. He's not going to shoot many threes. Everything's going to be a dunk at the basket. Doesn't have really post moves. Rim runner, rim defender. You know what? I want to see what his defense is within 6 feet of the rim. I want to see what his defense is within 6 feet of the rim this season, guys. This could be interesting. This is something I often look at. For reference, like Ivica Zubats, guys are only shooting, I think, 52, 53% within 6 feet of the rim against him. That's elite. So, just so you know, that's the starting point there. I don't expect Eubanks to be anywhere close to that. Let me see if I can find him. Is he listed as a center? Yeah, Drew Eubanks. You know what? Drew Eubanks, guys are shooting 57.1% within 6 feet of the rim against Eubanks. That's not bad, guys. That's not bad. You'll take that. That's the try hard part of Eubanks. For instance, against Bamba, wait a second. They're shooting 54%? How could that be? Well, small sample size. As it is for Eubanks, too. So Drew Eubanks is shooting 63% within 6 feet of the rim. He's giving up 57% within 6 feet of the rim. Do you have a prediction for another possible trade that is actually plausible? No, that's for you guys to throw at me, and I'll tell you if it's plausible or not. Kaylee said getting to move out of Utah for your birthday is probably such a nice gift for Drew Eubanks. David said, is there a way we can get Valanciunas from the Wizards and give up Bones in a second? But I think other teams can offer more than that. I think there is a bit of a misconception about Valanciunas. He's a big body. He's not a great defender. He's not, guys. He gets cooked in the pick and roll. He has really slow feet. Did you watch him the last game out? Okay. Valanciunas is giving up 71% shooting within 6 feet of the rim. That is awful. Guys are shooting 71% within 6 feet of the rim against Valanciunas. Now, I do think some of this is because he's on a really bad team. You get him in a winning environment, it would be different. I honestly believe that's the case. Like last season, he was giving up 64% within 6 feet of the rim for the New Orleans Pelicans. Let's see the 22-23 season. He was giving up 65%. I don't think that's a strength of his, guys. His rim protection. I don't think people realize that about Jonas Valanciunas. They just assume, oh, he's a tough guy. He's decent in like one-on-one defense, like in a traditional 90 sense of going up against a big man. But that's different than how most guys get used today. Like he will get targeted in pick and rolls. He's talented on the offensive end. He can board, but he's not a great defender. Clay said DeRozan is good because he's born in LA, but you think they're similar as Kawhi, but DeRozan is always healthy. Clay, anybody else help this guy out? Clay. Like, that's great that DeRozan is healthy. Like, he's not the same player as Kawhi. I'm just comparing them in the mid-range. He is a mid-range master. I don't think you want him taking up some of Kawhi's space. Chris said Jordan Miller, Bones, plus man for Fox. Jeez, should this be a timeout? Like, this is so dumb. Why did I ask for trades? What am I thinking? Absent said, athletically, man hasn't looked the same since the ankle injury last year. His hops are still solid, but his foot speed isn't the same anymore. He no longer has that quick first step. I don't know if I buy that. Richard said, big names come with big salaries. Then our bench is deleted. Remember how that impacted us down the stretch last season? Go Clippers. Mike Dang said his birthday gift is getting to a better team. Happy birthday, Drew Eubanks. Yanni Tears said, is Drew going to take minutes from Batum? I mean, probably at times, but not when they need Batum most. They need, I think, Batum to be playing less right now. Honestly, I want Batum fresh and recharged for a playoff series because I'm going to say this again because you guys don't seem to listen to me about this. If you need a starting power forward in a playoff series, Batum can still start at the 4 to move Kawhi down to the 3. That is kind of an ace in the hole that they have that nobody is talking about, that nobody has thought about. I really think Batum can still start in a playoff series and play the 4. I just saw him be awesome for Team France in heavy minutes this last summer. I think Mills, according to what Law Murray was saying, likely gets waived. Amin said, what does Eubanks bring? I'm hearing people say he's S. We've talked about it. Okay, take only what you need to survive, says Eubanks is a decent finisher, good help defense, lob threat, and a sky hooker. Also, why hooker? Why does it have to be sky hooker? Also hustles and physical. What Mo didn't do, he's the antithesis of Mo in that way. I think he'll fit our system based on everything I've seen. I like the assessment overall. Venkata said nothing. MKXLNT said, I'll take Eubanks over Tice on this team. Yeah, I think Eubanks is better than Tice was last year. Richard Heacock said, timeout for whoever recommends trading Kawhi. Mello S said, Clippers should go after John Collins, Jeremy Grant, or Kuzma. Oh, my God. Thanks, my guy. How exactly are they going to do that? Mike Dang said, I don't want any more old guys in trades. Eubanks isn't old. Venkata said there was a rumor the Clippers may be interested in Malik Monk and Len. So we're talking about trade with the Kings. Mean said, didn't expect myself to wake up to a trade. RFC 72 said, will you take Ben Simmons if he's bought out? Yes, I would. I was looking at Ben Simmons' numbers the other day, guys. He's been playing better. I think people have brought that up this season. I would not want to trade for him. But that's what the Clippers, being $4 million under the luxury tax, have an ability to do now. They can go hunting on the buyout market, guys. Punk's Gone Wrong said, no trades. Let's run it with this team. Old Man Yen said, how do buyouts work? Why didn't the Clips buy out PJ or Bones earlier? Because they just got something for PJ. Did you miss the news? F said, can we trade Kai Jones for Biabate? The reason they didn't buy out, no. But all of you wanted Kai Jones over Diabate this past summer. So I have, like, the seller's remorse on Diabate is laughable to me. There was nobody saying Diabate needs to remain a Clipper now that he's gotten some run with a really bad Charlotte Hornets team and is rebounding out there. Everybody's like, should have kept Diabate. I heard nobody say that all summer. Everybody talking about Kai Jones. Mickey Ramirez said, I think safe bet is looking at buyout market. Yeah, it's like, why didn't they buy out PJ Tucker, Old Man Yen? Because they just got something for him, because the $11 million expiring contract has value. Drew Eubanks is by far the best player in this move. Mike Dang said buying out a player is the same as keeping him in terms of financials. The money is still on your books, so you don't gain flexibility financially, but you do get a roster spot back. Well put. Eddie said Bones, Kobe, and Man for Bobby Portis. Why? Yeah, I don't think Milwaukee's doing that. Bobby Portis is a legacy guy there. Like, maybe they trade him, but they would want to get something really, really good. Like, Man, I don't know. I don't think they'd do it. Robert, okay. Amin said, well, at least Tucker is now gone. Let's effing go. Jonathan Ing said the 76ers are an apron team and would need a third team to facilitate on any trades done. This is a good point. First apron. Risky Thunder said, other than the Clippers, which team would you want to play for city to live in? I don't care about this question today. Josh Garcia said, I don't think Eubanks solves our problem. Valanciunas is literally a layup line, said Amin. Yeah, I don't know what people have watched with Jonas Valanciunas. Did you guys watch him that game recently against the Wizards that the Clippers weren't that impressive in? Valanciunas looks like he's got cement shoes on right now. I mean, I'd take him for the right price, but there's this misconception that he's some defensive stalwart, and he's not. Other than giving up Man and Bones, what do you think we need? I don't think they need to give up Man. They could give up Bones. He's not playing anyways. I think they could still use a more serviceable backup point guard. Patty Mills is not that guy, even if they don't buy him out. Jonathan Ing said, I think JV is serviceable as a backup 5. He would be the best backup 5 in the league, I think. I mean, Hartenstein might be playing backup 5 when Chet's back. So Clay said, I think Daniel Gafford. Yeah, Daniel Gafford or Lively, whoever's playing backup that night, and usually it's Gafford, is a better backup 5 than JV. Makua said Chris Boucher would be nice. We'll see him tomorrow in Toronto. F said, I don't want Valanciunas playing against Zoo at practice. Bromalid said DeRozan's an awful idea. Amin said Patty Mills and Kawhi reunite. They were teammates on San Antonio. There's that. Bonesaw said Clay's a casual. Jonathan Ing said to Clay, DeMar DeRozan and Kawhi are redundant and would hurt our spacing. Also, his contract isn't ideal. Thank you. This is why I say help out Clay. MKXLNT said, LOL, you asked for it. I guess that's me reacting to all these ridiculous trades. It's only been a few. Richard said Valanciunas is less athletic. Trez plus offense, negative defense. It's not a bad comp. Makua said, would Man in a second for Chris Boucher work? Maybe. I think that's possible. RFC 72 said they have wanted Terrence Mann in the past for Fred VanVleet, the Toronto Raptors. So I think that's a decent thought. Lizio said if the Kings decide to sell the whole team, would the Clippers go after Fox or Sabonis? How exactly are they going to get either of those guys? They don't have the assets. Eubanks puts in much better effort than Bamba, said Bromeliads. F said we included Bamba instead of Bones. Means even Jazz didn't want Bones, right? Not necessarily. Yawning Tears said some people think this is a move to get below tax to get someone in buyout market. I mean, that is part of it. It's that and Drew Eubanks. JJ the Boys said, Zubats is a bit of a master sky hooker himself. Sky hooker. Oh, God, you guys are killing me.
I'm so lonely. Please help me.
We still have Robert Flom coming on at some point here. I tell him, okay, ready, whenever. Need some more perspective from somebody else. We had Lob Murray on earlier. No Laughing Matters said, you got any moves you'd suggest, Adam? I mean, if you've been listening to the show for a while, you probably know those moves. All right, let's bring them in. From 213 Hoops, the Lob, the Jam, the podcast fame, it is Big Shot Bob Flom, Robert Flom, the human Eeyore, as some have called him, but one of my favorite people when it comes to Clippers analysis, and I'm glad we got him on today after this trade by the Clippers. Robert, how are we doing?
You know what, Adam? I'm doing well, and I was gonna come on even before this, so it ended up working out well.
Yes, a bit of a windfall for us and hopefully the Clippers here as they bring in Drew Eubanks. So I know you've already done a write-up for 213 Hoops on this move. What are the key takeaways? What do you think the Clippers' aim was here?
I think the biggest aim was dodging the luxury tax and getting some flexibility to bring in a buyout guy. I certainly think the Clippers hope that Drew Eubanks will be better than Mo Bamba. That's not part of this deal. I just don't think it was the biggest part of this deal. As I just did a podcast with Lucas over at the Lob, the Jam, the Pod, and I think, what we discussed and the reason why we think Eubanks is not the biggest part of this move is because the Clippers did not wait until deadline day. If they really thought that, if this was really all about like a center upgrade, they probably would have waited to the deadline to see who might have shaken loose. But I certainly think they imagine he will be better than Mo Bamba, who has completely lost the trust of Ty Lue, pretty obviously. And Drew Eubanks has a bit more of a track record, has played for some decent teams in the past. So yeah, I think that is part of it, but I think a lot of it is about clearing some space for a buyout guy and just for financial flexibility.
What do you think best case scenario is with Drew Eubanks as a player on this Clippers team? Can he be a higher end Daniel Tice without the 3-point shooting from last season?
If you want to be very optimistic, yes. I think a high-end outcome is not necessarily a player comp, because in some ways Eubanks is unusual. Tice is a good comp because they're built similarly. Like, he is undersized for a big man. I think he plays bigger than Daniel Tice, partially because he's younger and has a little bit more bounce. Like, he can finish better. Daniel Tice's biggest weakness was like he was just undersized and not very athletic at this point in his career. He would get out rebounded and he couldn't finish inside at all, etc. So I think, just in terms of not necessarily a player comp, but like I think the Clippers would ideally like him to do what Mo Bamba did not, which was be able to give them 12 to 15 minutes a game as like a competent backup big man who can, protect the rim a little bit, who can rebound a little bit, and can finish around the rim on pick and rolls. And he might be able to do that. I'm not ultra optimistic, but like he should be better than Mo Bamba. I think he will be an upgrade at backup center. And he's hopefully somebody that Ty Lue will trust because, as we saw yesterday, even with one guy and Nick Batum out, the Clippers were playing Terrence Mann at center, which is not feasible for the long run. And I think the Clippers would be the first to say that. But hopefully Eubanks is just a bit more of a steady, stable option than Mo Bamba.
You weren't high on the Mo Bamba move from the beginning. What ended up being his downfall? Was it just lack of motor? Is that what has held him back in his career?
I don't know if it's motor. He's one of those guys who like it, kind of for people who remember Shabazz Muhammad, throwing it way back here, a guy who was honestly probably too good, too young, and never ended up really learning how to play basketball. Um, like, he's really tall. He has some athleticism. He has some touch. Like, he can shoot. He wasn't an amazing shooter, but like he is a 7-footer with athleticism and length who can kind of shoot, which made him like unstoppable at lower levels of basketball. Like, if you watch him in high school or whatever, I'm not a high school scout at all. Like, I will not pretend to have watched actual games of him. But if you go back and look at him compared to high schoolers, I mean, he didn't have to really know how to play basketball because he was just a dominant presence, as just like he had just enough skill and the size and athleticism to be unstoppable at lower levels. And that's like kind of like Shabazz Muhammad, who was older for his age, was super strong, and like just didn't really ever have to learn the nuances of basketball. I think that's really, I don't think like Mo Bamba doesn't work hard or play hard. I just think he just like doesn't know where to be on the basketball court, really. Like, not to the extent of Kai Jones, who really has no idea where to be, but like Mo Bamba he was constantly kind of out of position and the rotations were a half step slow. And I don't really think it was an effort issue. I just think it was like he's just unfortunately not like great at actually playing basketball type of guy, which is unfortunate because I think he was pretty well liked by the team and you can see the flashes. Like, there were a couple games certainly where he had a big positive impact. He wasn't like an absolute we got zero from this guy. He had a couple helpful games, but he just was not reliable enough on a
Do you
game-to-game
think the
basis.
Clippers coaching staff and style of play can get more out of Drew Eubanks? Like, the fit is right for this type of team?
Yeah, I think Lucas noted this, and it's a good point, which is that pick and pop guys like Clippers fans have always wanted a pick and pop guy, and they just have
Spencer
not played well
Hawes,
with the
baby.
Clippers. Spencer Hawes. You could look at Byron Mullins, if you want to go way back.
Biondo.
Serge, yeah, Serge Ibaka. Daniel Tice even last year. Like, and I think part of why is, like, the Clippers don't have many guys who really truly turn the corner and get downhill, and those are the guys who are most effective. for pick and pop because it clears the lane. You can get all the way downhill and then kick out for easy threes. That's the whole point of pick and pop. Like that's what makes the Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr. combo so deadly because Morant is so fast. He gets all the way downhill. You have to help. And then all of a sudden, Jaren Jackson Jr. is wide open for three. As good as James Harden has been at times, like he's not a guy who will consistently get all the way by his man and get all the way to the rim and have open kickouts. And nobody else on the Clippers, quite frankly, has the ability to get downhill and or the passing vision to do so. So I think to some extent it is a fit issue. And to that sense, Drew Eubanks does make a lot more sense. He's a guy who, has taken 5 threes this year. He will not take threes. He does operate kind of in the floater range. He does go to the rim. And that's the kind of player that the Clippers are more comfortable playing with. He will be kind of a much, 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 much worse version of Ivica Zubac. And I think the Clippers are probably ultimately more comfortable playing with that style.
It's like
of player.
KPJ being a much, much, much worse version of James Harden.
A little. I mean, I think the playmaking gap is so much different there that like that is a little different. But yeah, I mean, it kind of like that's kind of like how a lot of teams operate is you get these guys who are facsimiles of your best players so that it makes sense to just plug them in. And yeah, I don't think Mo Bamba, like the 3-point shooting never really clicked, but it's also like he didn't really get that many of them because again, the Clippers just were not able to generate them for him. That's not really how they play. Eubanks is a much easier just plug and play. He has set picks, he rolls, he will get some occasional finishes.
Someone asked in here if Patty Mills is going to take KPJ's minutes. Is he even going to be on the team?
No. I'm sure we've already mentioned the Law Murray tweet about this. I think that's exactly it. I think like, not to say that I have lost actual sources on the team, but I think that just makes the most sense. Like Patty Mills is a fantastic locker room guy, like one of the most beloved veterans in the entire NBA. He's played with Kawhi Leonard for years, like how many, like 6-7 years on the Spurs. Everybody loves Patty Mills. I think if the Clippers are able to get a couple buyout guys, they might cut him loose. I don't think he's going to play in the rotation at all, except in the games where the Clippers sit everybody. If you look at his numbers from the past 3 seasons, they are really bad. Like Patty Mills was an awesome player in his prime. He was absolutely a Clippers killer. But he's 36 and he's a very undersized point guard. He is not an NBA caliber player. He is purely locker room and vibes guy. And there's a very decent chance he's just not on the team, whether because he wants to go somewhere he has even a theoretical chance at playing time or because they cut him to get somebody who will actually play.
I kind of ranted about this a little bit earlier because, well, I had time to fill. Law Murray actually came on before you did while he was at the airport for a few minutes. Why couldn't PJ Tucker be that guy? Why couldn't he be a locker room and vibes guy? He talked about wanting to be on a contender, and the Clippers are 8 games over 500 and look like one when they have Kawhi out there.
It's very funny you say that. There were a couple Lakers people, who mentioned maybe PJ Tucker being like a locker room vibes grit guy, and I responded saying like, one, I would love if the Lakers signed PJ Tucker, and two, I mean that's what the Clippers probably hoped for. Like, I mean, I hoped last year when they traded I think they probably assumed he could have something in the tank to actually help them on the court. But my guess is they probably, at least over the summer or early in camp, came to him and were like, would you at least want to be around the team, help out in practice, be like a guy on the bench? And my guess is he had no interest in that. Maybe the Clippers didn't do that. Again, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I just, for whatever reason, PJ Tucker just did not want to be that veteran presence guy. NBA players, again, I cannot speak to no PJ Tucker in any capacity. NBA players, by the fact that they're some of the best at what they do in the entire world and make millions of dollars and are famous, have big egos. And notoriously, a lot of NBA players think they can still play long after they can no longer actually play NBA caliber basketball. And I think that's PJ Tucker. Like, he thinks he can still play. I don't think he really can. And he just was not going to be that guy for the Clippers. It is irritating. They could have probably used that. But then again, vibes have not been an issue with this team at all, and nor is veteran presence. So, like, it is what it is. But it is a good question. It is something that I imagine the Clippers would have loved if they'd had him be there on the bench, being like a leader to the young guys. Like for Kobe Brown, could have been like a great mentor, maybe as like a kind of similar build type at forward. But hey.
Someone else is pointing out Makua 88 in here as we got quite a few people here on a Clippers trade day saying Patty Mills could get waived and they convert Jordan's two-way to a standard contract. You see that as a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the Clippers have a few different avenues. One, as I'm sure we're going to talk about, potential buyout guys, right? Like that is certainly an avenue that they will want to explore. Um, that would honestly probably be the Bones Highland spot.
Mm.
I would guess. If they get a buyout guy, my guess is would be Bones who gets cut. In terms of, I think they've been pretty open about wanting to convert Jordan Miller. I think that would be the ideal. Would be, they get a buyout guy to replace Bones Highland, and then they cut, waive, trade, whatever, Patty Mills, and they sign Jordan Miller. If they can't get a buyout guy, it might be as simple as they just cut Bones Highland and or Patty Mills and sign Jordan Miller. I think it's very possible. I think the Clippers have been open about wanting it. Guys who are plugged into the team, like Law Murray, have said all season that the Clippers would love to put Jordan Miller in an actual contract. And I think there's a pretty good chance that happens.
Someone's saying we need to keep in mind that Zoo needs to get paid next year. Zoo just got the
Already been
extension, my
paid.
guy. Where were you this summer? We had
Yeah, coffee is a different question. But yeah, Zoo has already gotten paid.
coffee. I did bring up earlier because other people have brought it up. This is not my idea. I would never want to trade Amir Coffee, but some have said, well, they might not be able to hold on to him. He has value. He could be a sweetener in a trade. Amir Coffee's a solid player, I think, but he just doesn't make a lot of money. Is that a possibility?
This is why, and when I was brought on at the very start of the season and people got very, very angry at me, I said that from a long-term asset play, what I think the quote unquote smartest long-term decision making for the Clippers would be to sign these veterans and then trade them at the deadline for future picks. That would be a potential with Amir Coffee. Like, again, I'm not advocating for that. Amir Coffee is the Clippers sixth man right now. Could be clear, they're not going to do that. um, he's playing like the fourth or fifth most minutes on the team, and he is Ty Lue's sixth most trusted guy on the team beyond the starters by far. He is not going to get dumped for second round picks. Is that like in terms of like a pure Daryl Morey, Sam Presti asset brain? Is that maybe the smartest thing to do if you're probably not going to keep him this summer and this team is probably not going to make a super deep playoff run? Sure. Is that a thing that actual NBA teams do? Not really. I don't think they're going to dump Amir Coffee to a contender for second.
Brian Seaman would protest. He would riot.
I even if they don't keep Amir he's too important to this team, and they're not gonna trade him. Even again, if it theoretically might be the smart move, because I think teams would pay actual assets for Amir Coffee because he's been good.
Yeah,
and
that's
really
all I mean.
cheap
That's the
and
only
fits
reason
on
to
a
bring
lot
it
of
up.
teams. Yeah, but no, it's I would be shocked if they traded Amir Coffee, unless it's for like an actual really good NBA player, and there's really no indications the Clippers have been involved in those.
What do you think Terrence Mann's value is right now? Is it dipping by the game? I feel like the last couple of games from him have been kind of rough. And obviously his contract extension kicks in next season for about $15 million. Right now he's about $11 million. Like, they're playing Toronto tomorrow. That was a team at one point that looked to be a trade partner with Fred VanVleet going to the Clippers for Terrence Mann. That's how much they thought of him. Do you think outside perception is still that high of T-Man?
I don't think teams have probably significantly changed their valuation on Terrence Mann because of this season. He hasn't played that much. It's been pretty clearly an awkward situation and fit. I do think his new contract, like the Clippers extended him, and like I think they hoped that would actually make him more valuable because he's under contract for the rest of his prime. It's still pretty reasonable. I think his kind of inconsistent at best play combined with the new contract has made him harder to move. Do I think the Clippers would like have to attach assets to get off him? No. But I think trading him at his lowest value when he's under contract for several more years does not make a ton of sense. If he was just ballast for like a bigger move, like if they were trying to get like a pretty legitimate good player for whatever spot in the rotation, and like he's just the cost of that because they no longer have PJ Tucker's expiring, I could see it. But trading him when he's not at a lot of value, and it's still a guy who's not causing problems. He's a guy who's well liked by the team and the organization, and a guy who like I think probably will still get rotation minutes, or, if the Clippers get into a playoff series, even if he's not like in the formal rotation, there probably would be a point where Tyler would call Terrence Mann's number. I don't think he's on the out. He's not Bones Highland in terms of being on the outs. So no, and I think that this trade, because of the way it positions the Clippers under the luxury tax, I think it makes them doing any really significant trade less likely.
In case
But
I
who
mess
knows?
something up with the numbers when it comes to the luxury tax and then being around 4 million under it now, what are some
Yes.
of the cap implications? Because you have Patty Mills, who's on an expiring deal, and Drew Eubanks is non-guaranteed for next season. Could you go into some of that with
Mhm.
me here, Rob?
So, in terms of the luxury tax, I think the biggest thing is that it gets the Clippers out of the repeater. There's heavier penalties on teams that are in the luxury tax multiple years in a row. The Clippers have been in the luxury tax for 5 years, 6 years. Since the Kawhi PG move, certainly. So this would be the sixth year of that. Um, so I that helps financially in the short and long term. In terms of like their ability to sign guys, it just does give them more wiggle room under that to bring somebody in using the rest of the MLE that they did not give to Derrick Jones Jr. Um, but in terms of like the Eubanks and Mills stuff, I mean, I think really it just makes them easier to cut. Like if they find two buyout guys, let's say like Malcolm Brogdon and Steven Adams are available, and they're like, we could use both of these guys, it would be like, well, we can just cut Patty Mills. He makes the veteran minimum prorated. It's not very much money. It's not close to it wouldn't put us close to the first apron or even the luxury tax probably. And then the Drew Eubanks thing, I think, is just again, maybe if the Clippers get like a backup center and it's like Steven Adams is available for a buyout, maybe you just cut Drew Eubanks because you don't have to pay him next year. It would just be whatever is left this year. So it does make him a really advantageous contract. But in terms of like the buyout market, I don't think it changes too much. And in terms of the luxury tax, it basically just saves the Clippers a ton of money for this year and gives them and long-term savings, honestly, because it means that next year, if they go into the luxury tax, they will not be repeaters, I don't believe. So it will help in like the long term as
More
well.
from Robert Flom in just a second here on Clippers Talk, but I do want to remind you guys, Clippers Talk is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. It's the easiest way to play fantasy sports, and it's available in over 30 states. All you got to do is pick higher or lower on your favorite player stats, or your least favorite player stats, and go lower. And you can win up to 100 times your money. Make picks, win money. I got a free promo code for you guys. This will give new users a free pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. The promo code is LAC. You can find it and the referral link in the description down below in this very episode. Then you just go to underdogfantasy.com and you can see, okay, Atlanta is in Indiana. Trae Young, higher or lower than 22.5 points. What do you think? Pick one or the other. Tyrese Halliburton, higher or lower than 31.5 points plus rebounds plus assists. It is that simple. Underdog Fantasy, make picks, win money. So let's talk about more of the buyout candidates that could be out there. You think Steven Adams is a real possibility?
It's possible. I mean, he's playing for the Rockets right now, and they're really good. I imagine, like, if he's part of a Jimmy Butler trade, I don't know if like the Heat would have any use for him, or like a Zach LaVine deal or whatever. Like, if he gets traded, whichever team trades him might buy him out. If he's just on the Rockets, he's playing for them, and the other big man on their team is Jock Landale. I don't think he would get bought out. It's unlikely. The center buyout market is not great. I think the guard buyout market is much bigger and more robust. But again, it's honestly even hard to tell because, like, again, the deadline will shake so many things loose. Like if a bad team trades for, Malcolm Brogdon or whoever, I mean, the Wizards are bad, so they might buy him out anyway. But like, a team trades for one of these guys as just part of something else and they don't really need him or they don't want to play for that team. Maybe there's a buyout. But like Lonzo is a guy, like Lonzo Ball is a guy who if he gets traded, it would probably be for a team who wants to play him. If he's just on the Bulls, maybe the Bulls are like, you know what, we're not going to bring you back. You've been a trooper for us. We want to let you go play for a contender. We'll buy you out and let you go. So it really does depend on like who does and does not get moved.
How does it work when you pick up a guy? Is there bidding wars in the buyout market? And is that the overall point here with getting further below the luxury tax?
A little bit, yeah. So the way it works is that if you're over the apron, you cannot sign somebody who makes more than the mid level. That you're just not allowed to. So like Lonzo Ball, Malcolm Brogdon, I believe Steven Adams all make more than the
And
MLE. So
and
if they
that's
are bought
something like
out,
the
teams
Clippers
in the
wouldn't have been able to get Russell Westbrook a couple of years ago if that rule was underway.
correct. Exactly. So teams that are like heavy into the apron, like the Suns, for example, or a team that could desperately use buyout guys, will not be able to get any of the big buyout guys. Um, if So that does help. In terms of the bidding war stuff, the Clippers, most teams can just offer veteran minimums. The Clippers, because they have the rest of that MLE that they did not give to Derrick Jones Jr., would be able to offer that to buyout guys, which would be more than the veterans minimum. So that's where that comes into play, and that would still be under the 4 million under the luxury tax. So if they were to offer that, I believe it's around 3 million. They would be able to get like one of these buyout guys, pay them that much, and then it would be they'd still be under the luxury tax, and that's probably the cleanest fit. It would be more than the veteran minimum. So some of these guys, even if they're already getting paid a lot of money, they will never say no to more. So they'd probably sign up for that compared to a veteran minimum. Though really most buyout guys, it's more about the opportunity than about the pay, but you just never know.
What do you think their biggest need is still after today's trade? Is it a front court guy or is it somebody in the back court that's more stable with the basketball than, say, KPJ?
In an ideal world, I quite honestly probably think it's still center. I mean, the KPJ thing, as I've said on Twitter and on podcasts and stuff, I mean, I just wouldn't play him. I think the Clippers do have other options. I think there are guys out there that would be big upgrades in the backcourt. However, not just him, but other guys that the Clippers are currently playing. Like I think Lonzo Ball, even though he doesn't play a lot, has been really good this year for the Bulls. Like he would be immediately like the sixth or seventh best player on the Clippers. So like there are guys out there. Um, but I mean, I think in terms of just being stable and in terms of like just plugging somebody in, I still think it might be backup center. Like Drew Eubanks, I think will be better than Mo Bamba. Like I still don't think he'd be great. But again, like I don't know if there could be any good buyout centers. Like Robert Williams, and I've heard, and I mentioned this on the podcast as well, I have heard from people who are plugged into Blazers, the Clippers offers are not close to what they're looking for. The Blazers are not really looking to trade him at all. They need to be blown away with an offer. I would imagine they would want like a first round pick or a good young guy, and the Clippers do not have either of those to really trade. Or not, they're just not going to trade that future first for like Robert Williams. So like he's not going to be available on the buyout market. Like even guys like Kelly Olynyk or like Chris Boucher, they're not going to get bought out. Like, so I do think even though theoretically I would prefer to just get a better center, the guys who will be available will be a guard. And I think like there are guards available who could be backups, who could be improvements over Kevin Porter Jr.
Malcolm Brogdon is somebody the Clippers actually had traded for in the past.
Yes.
How good has he been
Yes.
this season in your mind? He's still been injury prone, but he would be an upgrade.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's always so tough to tell with like veterans on really bad teams, right? Like how good is Malcolm Brogdon going to be on a Wizards team that has very little talent that is playing for absolutely nothing? I'm pulling up his basketball reference page right now. He's played in 18 games for the Wizards this year. That's honestly more than I thought. He has not shot the ball well. He's putting up pretty standard Malcolm Brogdon numbers. He's scoring in the low teens, a handful of rebounds and assists, not very high turnovers. He's not shooting the ball well, but again, it's been a low sample size on a really bad team. I mean, I think he would absolutely be an upgrade over Kevin Porter Jr. And in terms of what we know Ty Lue's preferences are, he is kind of the clear guy who would be like a Ty Lue kind of guy, right? Because he can score, he can shoot, he can ball handle at least a little bit. Lonzo, as much as I would like him, is not, I don't think is really the kind of guy Ty Lue likes there. Because he's not a guy who like looks to score or shoot that much. He is a good 3-point shooter off the catch and shoot, but he's not a guy who will create his own shot much and look to score. That's kind of clearly what Ty Lue wants from that spot in the rotation. That would definitely be more Malcolm Brogdon compared to Lonzo Ball, even though I would prefer Lonzo. Malcolm Brogdon would fulfill that, and I think he is significantly better than Kevin Porter Jr. at a lot of things.
I talked about Jonas Valanciunas a little bit earlier because there was that rumor that all they want is 2 seconds. I don't know if that's true or if it's them just trying to get offers and field offers and have people bid against themselves. You said 2 seconds. Well, now we got this other team offering us this. So you got to, increase your price or your asset capital given to us. But I don't think people realize how bad he can be on defense at times, and they think he's a big body, tough guy. I just looked up his defense within 6 feet of the rim this season. He's given up 70%. Guys are shooting 70% within 6 feet of the rim when Jonas Valanciunas is out there. If you can get him for the right price, I'm all for it. But I don't think he's some cure-all because defensively he can get cooked at times.
Yeah, I mean, in a vacuum, I would definitely take Valanciunas over Drew Eubanks. He's just a better basketball player than Drew Eubanks. Is he like enough of an upgrade to where the Clippers would be willing to pay the price of like an extra second round pick? Maybe the Wizards also would have wanted like Kobe Brown or, Cam Christie or one of the Clippers' young guys. And I just don't think the Clippers were willing to trade that much. They have very few draft assets or young players. And I don't think they're willing to trade much of that for these upgrades that, like, as you said, are upgrades. Like Jonas Valanciunas is much better than Mo Bamba. Is he somebody that is probably going to swing like a playoff series for the Clippers? Unlikely. A game, maybe a game is all they need from him. But yeah, it seems like this trade would indicate the Clippers did not really see anybody out there that they think would be a difference maker. Because we know Drew Eubanks is not a difference maker. Even if he's better than Mo Bamba, like he's not a guy who's swinging a playoff series. And they would rather have the flexibility than maybe a somewhat better backup center like Jonas Valanciunas or Kelly Olynyk or whoever.
Is this a crazy question to ask if D'Angelo Russell could get bought out?
It's not crazy. The only thing with D'Lo would be, it would be convenient for him to go back to Los Angeles.
Stick it to the Lakers, baby.
I would imagine other teams would offer him a bigger role. Like in the playoffs, even though I'm not a D'Lo guy at all. Like he's a legitimately good NBA player though. But like on the Clippers, if they make a playoff run, like are you playing him alongside James Harden and Norm Powell significantly? Yeah. I mean, those lineups would be really good on offense, so they'd be really god awful on defense. He's the kind of guy who, like, if you were just looking for a strict facsimile of James Harden, that is D'Angelo Russell. He is very much just lesser James Harden. But like, would he come to the Clippers to like? He would probably have a pretty big role in the regular season, but like get like 10, 12 minutes a game in the playoffs in a lot of games. I don't know. He could be bought out, but my guess is some team will trade actual value for him because he's a good enough NBA player that, like, even if it's not a lot, like he's definitely not going to get a first. Like some team might trade like 2 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever for him. I think that's probably what will happen.
Do you think the same would happen with Ben Simmons? What's your assessment of him at this point? Because actually, he's been playing better the last couple of weeks.
The thing with Ben Simmons is just his salary is so big that like trading for him is tough because his salary is it's like 40 million, 42 million or something like that. So that makes like a trade for him.
What about
difficult.
Buyout
then? The buyout would just be like, they would just eat it. But I mean, they want to lose anyway, and he's probably helping them win games. I think a Ben Simmons buyout is quite possible, honestly. It would be a pretty incredible thing if he came to play for the Clippers. It could either go really well or really poorly, and I don't think there would be a middle option. But he's about as good as a buyout guy as there would probably be in terms of just sheer upside. Like if he like locks in and is really good on defense and is like, you put enough shooting around him, you pair him with like Norm Powell maybe and Amir Coffey, and give him like space to shoot. The problem with him is it's tough to play him with big men who don't shoot, and the Clippers don't have a big man who can shoot now.
They didn't before either, Rob,
for
to
all
be honest.
Yeah, that is true. And for all the talk about him playing center, like he has not been effective as a small ball center because he just does not rim protect. He's not good enough at that stuff. Like, is he better at that than Terrence Mann or Derrick Jones Jr.? Probably. But I don't think that's like really an option. I would be all for it though. Like, he's the kind of like pure talent that like, makes sense as a buyout guy, even if I think the fit is quite honestly still a little questionable.
People in here are asking, will Mills take Mann's minutes? Guys, there's a good chance Mills won't make the
Absolutely not.
team.
I would be stunned if Patty Mills played rotation minutes for a healthy Clippers team this season. I would be absolutely stunned. It would be a bad decision, in advance. He's been unplayable the past 2 to 3 years. Like, and it's fine. Like, it's fine. It's not a knock on him. Like,
Yeah.
he's 36. He's like 5'11". It's kind of crazy he's still in the NBA. I think it's purely just as like a veteran leader. Like, guys love Patty Mills. But no, I mean, he if he's still in the Clippers, there will be a game in March or April where they rest all their guys and Patty Mills will play and he might hit 4 or 5 threes and the bench goes absolutely insane. And I would love to watch that game. But it's he's not taking Terrence Mann's minutes and he's not taking Kevin Porter
Did he
Jr.'s
ever have
minutes.
a
Certainly
serious
not.
injury? Did he do his Achilles over the past 5 years or anything like that, Patty Mills?
I don't think so. I think it's
Yeah.
just age and just it's old, undersized, non-athletic. Like, he was never an above the rim guy, even as a smaller player. And like, it's amazing he was good as long as he was, at his size and his athleticism level. No, I don't think there was a major injury. I think he's just kind of
I'm
cooking.
guessing you wouldn't want Seth Curry because of his limitations and the way he gets hunted on the other end.
No, I mean, he's less cooked
Yeah.
than Patty Mills, but no, I mean, I wouldn't play him over anybody in the club. I mean, I am notoriously not a Kevin Porter Jr. guy, as everybody who follows me knows. Considering what the Clippers need, I don't really think I'd even play Seth Curry over Kevin Porter Jr. Um, he just doesn't add anything that they don't already have from like Amir Coffee in terms of
What is
spot up
the
shooting.
crux of your argument? And believe me, a lot of it's my argument too. I would just have Chris Dunn and Terrence Mann as your backup ball handlers and not play KPJ because it's hard to trust him possession to possession. What's your main
Yes.
argument for going a different direction?
I mean, I think up until Kawhi Leonard returned, even though I still wouldn't have played him because I mean, his first 10 to 12 games of the season were so bad. I think there was really no excuse to keep playing him minutes, even though he has absolutely been better since then. Like, the first 10 to 12 games of the season, he was like the worst player in the NBA. And since then, he has been much better, but still not very good. I think up until Kawhi returned, it was like, in the minutes that James Harden does not play, we need somebody who can handle the ball and at least just create shots, even if they're bad shots. It was basically the Marcus Morris argument, which is that, like, yes, we know he's not really very good at these, but like, he can at least create these shots and like get them up. And I think that was the KPJ argument. I think all of that really just goes out the window with Kawhi Leonard healthy. Because like, all Kevin Porter Jr. and the reason why he's looked better is because he's been taking fewer shots for the most part. Is he's getting the ball up the court and then just giving the ball to Kawhi, and Kawhi Leonard is doing good stuff. And it's like, well, Chris Dunn could definitely do that. Like, Chris Dunn is not the best ball handler the world has ever seen. He can competently bring the ball up the court and then just give it to Kawhi Leonard. Like, he can do that. Terrence Mann could do that. If that's all you're asking for from that position. So, like, as Kawhi continues to get healthier and play more minutes and like has a full stagger, like, asking that particular spot to be somebody who like takes a lot of shots, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. And especially like in big games, like in the playoffs, the Clippers have 4 clear best players, which is James Harden, Norm Powell, Kawhi Leonard, Ivica Zubac. 2 of those guys are going to be on the court at almost all times in the playoffs. And in that instance, you really don't need a guy who takes a lot of shots because, you have Kawhi and Zoo or Kawhi and Norm or whoever on the court. Like, you want the rest of those guys to be connective pieces and role players who play defense and are like safe players who won't hijack possessions. That is not Kevin Porter Jr. Again, like, I think I've said this before, he's been better on defense than I thought he'd be. He does contribute sometimes as a rebounder, but there's still too many times, at least twice per game, where he will dribble for 15 seconds and take a mid-range jumper. And as long as Kawhi Leonard or Norm Powell or James Harden or even Ivica Zubac is on the court, those are bad
Did you see
possessions.
the one he had last night on the left elbow in the second half where he was just spinning, trying to gain
Yeah.
separation with his pivot foot against the defender, eventually had to put up a shot. He must have had the ball for 6 seconds. Like, it was incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like the kind of stuff that, like, again, when the Clippers did not have Kawhi Leonard and he's out there with, you know, Amir Coffey and Terrence Mann and Nick Batum and Mo Bamba, maybe that is the best shot the Clippers can get. I would still disagree. Like, I would rather Amir Coffey has been so good at that dribble pull up
Yes.
15-footer this year. I would much rather see that over and over again because at least he's quick and decisive and doesn't dribble as much. So like I would still rather see that than the Kevin Porter Jr. thing, but you could at least squint and see it. The problem is just he does that once or twice a game, and like again in the playoffs where every possession matters, you just cannot have those possessions, and there's really no reason to think he'll cut them out. Like he's been in the NBA for 5 or 6 years now. This is kind of who he is. He has improved on defense. There are some times where it's like, wow, he really had a couple big rebounds. He had a couple big steals. Like again, I'm not saying he has not had good games for the Clippers this year. He has been so bad on offense that it's really tough to see the need to play him more than like a couple minutes. And I just what his role in offense now, the Clippers have three other
I
guys
think
who
his
can do that.
game against the Bucks in the fourth quarter and those minutes was
Yes.
probably the best game he's had when it came to impact in really flipping a ball
Mhm.
game with his defense and rebounding. Like, that was really impressive, and he almost helped them win the game against Boston miraculously. So he has been
Yes.
better, but some of the same flaws still remain, and they become more magnified in a playoff setting.
Yeah, I mean, I think just the thing with him is it's like it's this very weird conundrum where the Clippers got him to be this guy who would dribble and score and take a lot of shots, and that's been the worst part of his game. He's been fine at almost everything else. He is he's so lucky. He should have like 20 more turnovers than he does. The amount of times he's dribbled the ball and almost lost it, but like somebody else on the Clippers has picked it up or whatever is very funny. But like he's been fine as a defender and as a rebounder. He makes some good passes sometimes. His true shooting is just abominable. Like he doesn't make threes. He doesn't get to the line. When he does get to the line, he's not a very good free throw shooter. That's the part of his game that's been the worst. And it's just this very weird conundrum where he's been good at some of the other things, but the role that the Clippers got him for, he's been terrible at. But it seems like he's just going to be in the rotation unless the Clippers get a better, you know, get a better backup
You
guard.
know what I can't stand? People accusing you or me of being unfair that are actually the ones being unfair. So this guy Mike Dang says Rob refuses to acknowledge anything KPJ does. While you're literally saying his rebounding, his defense, he's had big steals, he's done some good things, and he just
Yeah.
ignores it.
I mean, I will very much acknowledge, and I have, that like a lot of this is just aesthetics. Like I hate those types of players who pound the ball and launch those horrible minute. I'm very open. Some of that is subjective. There are people who love that type of play. Like the ball don't stop guys love
Real
that kind of
hoopers.
stuff. That's yeah, real hooper. I'm not a real hooper. That's like the kind of thing where it's like that's where basketball, people have different preferences. Like, and to some extent that is what I prefer to watch in a basketball player, but just objectively, he has not been very good this year.
Okay, there's another guy that you've had criticism on that has been great this year. In fact, so good,
Mhm.
he probably should have been an all-star. I'm talking about Stormin Norman Powell.
Yeah.
Do you believe he had a case to make it over one of the reserves picked in the Western Conference, Rob?
He has a
I
case.
think I can
I
make it over
I
one
don't
guy.
think he has a case. I mean, I think if you just look at his raw numbers, they're insane. I mean, he's shot the ball insanely this year. He's been a ridiculously efficient scorer. Like every time he shoots, I pretty much think it's going in from wherever he's shooting it from. It is wild. The thing with Norm, as I've always said, is that he doesn't do much else, and everybody else who made the All-Star team does other things. Like he is a pure scorer, and the argument for James Harden is obviously that like a lot of Norm stuff is set up by James Harden, and that James Harden when you just watch the Clippers, sees the bulk of the defensive attention. There's just no question about it. The best opponent defender is usually on James Harden. James Harden is the guy who gets double teamed when he's on the court. Like, it's clear who the lead offensive guy is for the Clippers, and it is James Harden. That said, I mean, Norm has been such a good scorer this year. He absolutely had an all-star case. Like, I think if he would have made it, it would have been an awesome, awesome story. Like, it just would have been an incredible thing for him to do. And I think if there's an injury replacement, I think he very well could get a nod as an injury replacement. Like, it's not over for him. Um, the West All-Stars are ancient. Like, there are so many guys who are very possible, like, to get injured or whatever. I'm not saying I want that to happen. He could still get an injury nod. I think, quite honestly, I think he was the third choice on the Clippers. I think Zoo had a better case than Norm too, just because of how awesome he's been defensively. But no, I mean, Norm, considering the volume of scoring and his efficiency, I think certainly had a case. I think it was probably the right choice to put Harden over him, and then him over everybody else. I know people have made the Steph Curry comparisons. I get it. I think most people would acknowledge Steph Curry is still ultimately like a better basketball player than Norm Powell. But it is very funny, and it's a testament to how good Norm has been that when you run those side by sides, he looks like he's having a better season
Now,
than Steph Curry.
the
It's pretty
difference, though,
awesome.
is the same reason I think James Harden is more deserving of an all-star appearance and did get
Yes.
it than Norman Powell, because Norman Powell's more dependent on James Harden than James Harden is on Norman Powell. And Steph Curry
Yes.
is the number one option without a doubt that also has to run the show, unlike Norman Powell. But I will say this. I think the argument is against J-Dub with the OKC Thunder. And here's why. While they are first in the West, he's playing next to the MVP in SGA, who has like missed no games this season. Kawhi's only played 10 for the Clippers. And Norman Powell is out there shooting 8% better from three on high volume than J-Dub. And while you could say all he does is score, he's more limited in his repertoire of what he brings to the Clippers. Not all skill sets are created equal, and scoring is so important for this Clippers team. What he does is so important, and it's what they lacked without Kawhi, that I think he has a real case on top of the narrative stuff of everybody saying, oh, the Clippers are going to be a bottom four team in the West. Well, why aren't they? Well, Norman Powell's a big part of why they aren't. And I think actually one of the reasons he didn't get the nod is he got screwed last year in two ways. He didn't get into the three-point contest, which he should have based upon the numbers. Objectively, one of the best three-point shooters in the game, he should have been in the three-point contest, and he actually campaigned to try and get in, and they still forgot about him for whatever reason. And then he didn't finish top 3 in six man of the year voting when I think he led the league in scoring off the bench last season. Those two things matter because while it's the 2025 All-Star game and it should just be about this season, we know that's never how the voting goes. What you've done in the past matters. That all factors in. And I think if those two things were different for him last season, that would have helped build up some momentum with Norman Powell into this year, and people would have had more of a spotlight on him and would have seen just how good he's been. That's my argument. I'd take him over J-Dub, honestly. No? You're losing me? Man, I just laid that out perfectly, and now Rob, he can't hear my argument. Y'all can't even hear me. It was so good. Rob, do you got me? The technical issues are back for Big Shot Bob Flom. Do you got me again? Oh, no. He's workshopping it. He'll figure it out here. That's something I was ranting about last night, guys. Okay.
I'm back. I think the J-Dub thing is, you will not need to convince me Jalen Williams is overrated. I've been making that argument since last season. He's a media darling.
Because they love saying J-Dub. They just love saying J-Dub.
Yeah, there are other things. I mean, I think his archetype of player is very is very overrated in general. I think he's absolutely a Shea merchant on offense. Like, in the minutes where he's playing without Shea, their offense is terrible. He's And I think it's the biggest reason to knock them in the playoffs is like when in the few minutes Shea sits or if Shea's having an off game, I don't think they'll have any answers on offense. I think their team is entirely dependent on Shea on offense. The gap on defense is gigantic. Like J-Dub is probably going to make an all defense team this year for pretty good reason. And Norm Powell is like at best a below average. I think he's been okay on defense this year for the most part, but like nobody's going to mistake him for a good defender. And J-Dub is a key reason for them being one of the best defenses in NBA history. So I think there is an argument. I just and they were just going to reward the team that had the best record with the second guy.
He's more
That's
indispensable
just
though
how
for
these
their
things work.
team. I would argue it's Norm.
It might be. If you go that way, it really might be. The Thunder have so many depth pieces and they have so many guys. Like it could be Norm, but I think in a vacuum, J-Dub is a better player because there's just a huge gap on defense and as a playmaker, etc. But I mean, as a score, and there's no question Norm Powell is a better scorer than Jalen Williams. That's not remotely close.
Someone in here who at the beginning of the season wanted to trade for Jimmy Butler because he thinks he's like Kawhi, but healthier. This guy, Quentin Cornett, he also said Zoo only dunks like a few weeks ago while he leads the league, I think, in hook shots this season. So he's a longtime Clipper fan.
Zoo skeptics at this point. I don't know how there are still Zoo haters at this point. It's really unbelievable to me after the season he's had. He's not a perfect player. I don't think anybody would argue he's a perfect player. He can't shoot from beyond like 10 feet. And like he's gotten much better at a playmaker. He's still not an incredible playmaker. There are still times where he gets down on himself after some bad plays or a bad foul or whatever. These are nitpicks. He has been like one of the 7 to 8 best centers in the NBA this year. He's not going to make all NBA, but he's been awesome. He's a great value on his contract. He's a perfect fit with James Harden and Kawhi Leonard. And he is a defensive and rebounding monster who will finish around there. The Zoo nitpickers, I don't understand.
There's just casuals that
like,
think he can't catch the basketball because his first season with the Clippers, he had broken hands and was out there playing when he probably shouldn't have been.
It all comes back to aesthetics. Like it's one of the reasons why he may not have made the All-Star and why people always complain about like Rudy Gobert making the All-Star team, even though he's clearly deserved it on merit every year he's made it because he's so dominant as a defender and rebounder. It's like, well, these guys aren't exciting, they're not fun, they're not flashy, etc. And if your argument is I don't enjoy watching Ivica Zubac play, that's fine. Like I could say that about anybody. He's not a very exciting player to watch if you don't like the intricacies of defense. If you love watching guys play defense, then you will love Ivica Zubac because that man is very good at playing NBA defense. Yeah.
I appreciate you saying that stuff about Big Zoo because I pull hair out when they're not getting him the basketball enough. And I'm glad to see that all of a sudden he's being recognized for all the 2020 games against elite defenders in this league. He's doing so against some of the best. In fact, even Quentin here, who was a Zoo hater, is saying, okay, Zoo has a bag. I admit it. Please ask my questions about Jimmy Butler. I don't know exactly what his question was about Jimmy Butler. I think it's something to do with whether or not they should bring him in.
For him? No. I don't. It's not even a will they. I don't know how they would do it. You'd have to trade Norm Powell and other salary.
I think he would say trade Kawhi for him.
No, no, it's not going to happen.
You wouldn't do it, and they shouldn't do it.
No. I mean, the thing with Jimmy Butler is like he would only want to come here if he could play with Kawhi Leonard. Like he wouldn't. Why would he want to come to a team that he's just replacing Kawhi Leonard? I know that they're not going to trade for Jimmy Butler. The only way they could have is if they'd kept, like theoretically, with the PJ Tucker deal, you get a good enough salary as like an expiring, which is apparently what the Heat are looking for. You could put something together, but like if you no longer have the PJ Tucker salary now, it makes it even harder. They're not trading for Jimmy Butler.
Who do you think ends up getting Jimmy? Is it going to be Golden State getting desperate enough for Phoenix?
I can't imagine it's Phoenix. I don't think anybody's going to trade for Bradley Beal. Or I mean, it's not just will trade for it. It's that if Bradley Beal will let them trade for him. I don't think the Suns will be able to move off Beal, and if they can't move off Beal, they're not getting Jimmy Butler. I would guess the Warriors. I mean, who I think should do it, even if he doesn't want them to trade for him, it's Memphis. He's an
Yeah.
amazing fit with them. They could do it entirely on expiring salaries, which is apparently what the Heat want. And he would be an amazing fit. And even if he doesn't want to be there long term, like you don't think he would show up and be like, you know what, I'm playing with John Morant, Desmond Bain, Jaren Jackson Jr. That team would have a chance to win the Western Conference if healthy. Like that's who should trade for him. I don't think it's gonna happen. Golden State would be a huge mistake. That team is not good. Jimmy Butler is not. They'd have to trade Andrew Wiggins, who's like not amazing, but like you'd ideally want Wiggins to be with Jimmy Butler, and that would not work without Andrew Wiggins being in the deal. Golden State might be the team. That would be a big mistake by them.
It's only because they're so desperate at this point, and they want to appease their fans that are clamoring for any move at this point.
They should go the other way.
They should sell off for sure.
Yeah, but they're not.
No.
They're not. Going
so before we get out of here, I just want to get your overall perspective on this Clippers team, the state of the Clippers. We're past the midway point. Kawhi's played 10 games. They're 8-2 in those games. How much more belief do you have in this squad, having seen them with Kawhi now, who we said, a month ago, we're like, if they get last year's version of Kawhi, they could be a contender again with the way this roster has been constructed. Do you feel like that?
Theoretically, yes. Like if you map out the optimal scenario, Kawhi Leonard continues to improve. He's able to get off his minutes restriction. He is healthy in the playoffs. There's absolutely a path for the Clippers to make a deep playoff run, right? Like they could beat in the playoff series, like they could beat. I don't think they could beat the Thunder if the Thunder are healthy. The Nuggets
chance
with Jokic
against the Thunder.
If they're healthy, no. If Chet is still out, maybe. Chet is so good. I mean, he's barely played for them this year. He's their second best player. And it's insane how good they've been without him. I mean, with him, I think they'd be. I don't think the Clippers would have a chance. But like you could, even though the Rockets are a horrible matchup because of how young and athletic and fast they are, they're a horrible matchup for the Clippers. Like if Kawhi Leonard is healthy, I mean, the Clippers would have so much more experience. They'd have much more scoring firepower. Like you could talk yourself into them. Same thing with like the Grizzlies, the Nuggets. Even as good as Jokic is, he's the best player in the league, probably still, even with as good as Shea has been. Like the rest of their team is pretty shaky. You could talk yourself into it. I think it's still too early to have. Unfortunately, it's still too early to have belief in Kawhi Leonard's health. And it's at this point, it's like I'll believe it when I see it. That doesn't mean my expectations haven't been raised. They have been. I mean, before the season, I thought they'd be on the fringes of the play-in. At this point, I mean, it would be pretty inexcusable if they didn't make the play-in. They should finish ahead of the Spurs and the Warriors unless those teams make massive upgrades. Even if they do, they should probably still finish in the play-in. I think like a reasonable expectation now is for them to be in the top 6 and or be in the 7th or 8th seed and make the playoffs and to have a competitive first round series. And like that would be a really good outcome for this team. If they draw the right matchup, maybe they win the first round. Do I think Kawhi Leonard will stay healthy enough for like 3 playoff rounds? It's just hard to say that considering what we've seen the past 5 years. But like, again, I get why fans are optimistic. The team's defense is fantastic. Their offense has been improving with Kawhi Leonard. If Kawhi is healthy and if they get the right matchups, you can talk yourself into a deep playoff run. And I think I believe in this team's defense. We have a very, very large sample size that they are an excellent, excellent defense. We also, the other worry, of course, is Harden being able to sustain this level of play. We've seen him drop off in prior years. He's had a massive, massive load. It's the reason why he made the All-Star team. It could also be the reason he falls off a cliff, the last half of the season. I hope it doesn't happen. It's been incredible to watch him play this year for the most part, turnovers aside.
It is amazing, Rob.
But I mean, I think
how little right now James Harden's prior playoff struggles have been brought up. It's like there is this whole thing with James Harden not exactly being a playoff riser. I think he can be good enough next to Kawhi. I have more faith.
Yeah,
And he was good last season. He was the best player in that
he
series against
was.
Dallas for sure. But it seems to not be talked about at all lately. Like I think that's a real thing.
Yeah, and I mean, and like a lot of Clippers players, I mean, I think an archetype that struggles in the playoffs are one-way players. And the Clippers have a lot of guys who are one-way players. Um, you know, a lot of their players are very much defense first, who are guys who sometimes get played off the court in the playoffs. You have guys who are one-way players who are really good on offense and not great on defense. Those guys might get targeted a lot. But again, like I mean, I think if Kawhi is healthy, that's the big if. Like if Kawhi is healthy, they have more talent than a lot of the teams in the Western Conference. Um, you know, but I just think it's impossible to count on Kawhi being healthy yet. Um, and that's the bottom line. Like, if you could, but like again, if you guarantee Kawhi being healthy, if like you just say everybody's healthy, then all of a sudden, like the Thunder have Chet and they're fully healthy, and it's like I don't know if any team is beating them this year with how good they've been without him.
Are you just have the
But I mean,
Thunder, the Celtics, and the Cavs in a different tier than everybody else?
yeah, I think so. Like just in terms of, and not to get too analytics, like net ratings. In terms of net rating, those
Hey, the
teams are way
Clippers
ahead.
best over the
In
last
terms of
10
just what,
games, though.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, their defense has been incredible, and that's the reason to be optimistic about this team. Is this is the best Clippers defense we've seen, even in the early 2-on-3 years when PG and Kawhi were younger and healthier. Like this is the best we've seen their defense on a consistent basis ever. And a lot of that is Ivica Zubac. A lot of that is Derrick Jones Jr. and Chris Dunn, who've been absolute monsters on the perimeter defensively. Um, but like yeah, I mean, the Cavs have 4 guys who are theoretically all-stars. The Thunder have, probably the MVP and multiple other guys who are all-star level and a lot of depth. The Celtics just won a championship last year and one of the more dominant runs we've seen. I think those 3 teams have to be on top. But yeah, I mean, I think you would talk yourself into the Clippers, if healthy, being better or at least, having a good chance against anybody else in the West. So yeah, like I think they're very good. They've proven me and a lot of people wrong. But like the playoffs are a different story. They are every year. And it's just the Kawhi thing. It's just, and we can't predict it. We can't know it. Maybe this year is the year he's healthy, and the Clippers make a deep run. But like until we see it, it's just impossible to think that he hasn't finished the playoffs healthy since 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always encouraged when I see him out there. It feels special because,
He's so good. He's so good.
and you just never know. You never know.
Yeah.
He has said he's basically day to day. That's what it's going to be the rest of his career. He said recently after a game, we'll see how I feel tomorrow. Like that's what this is. So you're on a razor's edge all the time. You're on pins and needles with
Yeah.
Kawhi, and I I love the player, and my heart breaks for him because I know he wants to be out there. And he's one of there's an alternate universe where Kawhi is going down as a top 5 player ever, like where he has a GOAT conversation happening surrounding him.
Yeah.
And it's only been his
Yeah.
health that has held him back. But overall, he has looked, would you say, through 10 games better than you would have imagined?
Better than expected. Oh, yes. I mean, I thought he'd need significant ramp up time. Like the first 2 to 3 games were about what I imagined. Like he was still making an impact because he's Kawhi Leonard, and this team has needed like a big forward who can do the things he does. I was not expecting him to look this good this quickly. Um, the defense I don't think will ever quite recover to like where he was in his prime. He's still been positive on defense. And like on offense, I mean, his ability to hit those mid-rangers, he's looked quick and going around guys at times. He in most of these games, he's had good lift on his three-point shot. Yeah, like I think he's been really good. I mean, he's been probably like a fringe all-star caliber player in the games he's healthy. like I think the impact would say he's been better than that. The raw numbers are not quite there, but like I mean the team has been absolutely monstrous with him on the court. And he's just a very, very fun player to watch play basketball. Like every time he has one of his classic, takeaways where he just rips the ball from somebody or comes out of nowhere for a block. Some of his little moves to get to the rim. And like that alley-oop yesterday is a big deal. It's like, he went up for it, he finished, he still hung on the rim a little bit to make sure he had a soft landing. Maybe when maybe we'll know he's fully back when he just dunks and just immediately lands. It's like, my knee is good enough to hold. Maybe that will never happen. I don't know. But he's been fantastic.
It is interesting because the Charlotte game last season was his last game before the knee swelled up. And then it was them going to Sacramento, and he said, "Hey, I woke up and my knee swelled up." So last night, kind of a landmark game just because of that, and he did look really good out there. So far through 10 games in 242 minutes, the Clippers have an offensive rating of 122 with Kawhi out there on the court and a defensive rating of 99.6 when he's out there on the court. Like, all he does is add. He doesn't take away from anything. All he does is strengthen strengths.
Yeah, I mean, and that's been the thing with the Clippers, that people have criticized them for, is that you need Kawhi to be the additive, right? Like that was the thing with the Raptors. They had a team and they just plugged in Kawhi Leonard. They did not build their team around Kawhi Leonard. And that's kind of how this Clippers team is, right? Like it's not really built around Kawhi Leonard. He's just coming in and replacing what was already there and just fitting in. And that's kind of how he's been at his best. But yeah, I mean, they've been insane with him. To be fair, like their competition over that time has not been amazing. But like he just makes them so much better on both ends of the court, especially on offense. I mean, their offense has been a slog all year, and it is very slowly rising up the rankings now that he's been
He is Big Shot Bob Flom from 213 Hoops with Lucas Hand. Don't call him Han with Dr. Shap, of course. And they got a lot of contributors like Jamal Christopher as well. Rob, where can everybody find you, just in case I missed out on giving out any of your platforms?
That's fine. On Twitter and Blue Sky, I'm at Rich Homie Flom. And I don't post as much as I used to, but I still will tweet, and I call it tweeting on Blue Sky too, whatever. So I'm still on those platforms, and 213 Hoops is the site. Lob the Jam, the podcast, is the podcast. And you will find me, for people who saying I don't watch enough Clippers games, you will find me tweeting about them far too much for my own mental health and well-being. But that's where you could find me, and I'm around on those platforms, and I generally think I'm pretty good at answering questions on there too when people have.
Well, I always love your analysis. I've been talking you up for years. You delivered once again here on Clippers Talk. This was 120 straight days of having Clippers Talk for you guys. We're 7 days a week here. This was, yes, another show, 120 days into this. We haven't missed one since October 4th. It was a big day. It was good to have Robert Flom on. A big thanks also to La Murray for coming on earlier. If you guys missed that, make sure to check it out here as we're about to upload this episode. Till tomorrow with the Clippers pregame show starting at 11:30. Clippers in Toronto taking on the Raptors. I'm Adam Osland. We will talk to you then. Go Clippers.